Okay. Awesome. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Bolton Academy's Go Team meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it has been publicly noticed. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Go Team. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present here are to quietly observe. For members of the Go Team, please identify yourself when you speak. I am pleased to call this meeting of the Bolton Academy Go Team to order at 5:19 p.m. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary will now call roll. And okay, Siobhan Mincy,
Here.
Damani Fisher, Natalie Malkoff, Christina Fanning, Haiti Romero.
Here.
Sandy White, Lakeitha Carlos, Mario Correa, Daryl Stewart.
Here.
All right, we do not have a quorum present, but we do not need one for the business today. So no, there is not a quorum present. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda, and this was provided. This was publicly noticed on our Go Team website. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Okay. All members approving say aye.
Aye.
All members opposed. Any members abstaining? Okay, so the motion to approve the meeting agenda passes. And we provide the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Also, those have been publicly noticed. If there are any corrections, please note them now. And if there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's agenda, the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
I second that motion.
Okay, so all members approving say aye.
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 All members opposed? Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. So the previous meeting minutes have been approved. We will now move to the discussion items on our agenda. And
Okay.
we have the BASC3 results for discussion.
Okay, great. So I'm going to have Mr. Stewart walk us through the BAS data. That was our last month, would have been our last meeting, but I did not give Mr. Stewart enough time to put that data together. So we have the data now. And so this is our last meeting. This is our last discussion item that we didn't talk about.
Okay. Of course, the BAS3 BEST stands for Behavior Assessment Systems for Children, the 3rd edition. And BEST is Behavior and Emotional. Give me 1 second, I'm up on the screen. Behavior and Emotional Screening System, the universal screener. The BEST is designed to assess behavior and emotional strengths and opportunities for growth in grades pre-K through 12 students. It helps to put kids on our radar who otherwise might not be, those who do not yet know how to advocate for themselves, and also those students whose academic or behavior sets mass social emotional struggles. It is a screening assessment, not a diagnostic assessment, and no specialized training is required to administer the assessment. Okay. Students are given an overall score, a BRT score, that indicates how far their score is from the average to the norm. And as you look at on the left-hand side, the norm is a score of 60 or below. Elevated risk is 71 to 60, and extremely elevated risk is 71 or higher. And on the right-hand side, we just give explanations for the acronyms. Okay. The assessment is for grades K through K through 5. The teachers administer an assessment on the students, right? And so our total number of students, 486 who had the opportunity to be assessed. If you can look at the numbers, 476 of the students were screened, 10 were not screened, and those students were students either whose parents opted them out or they came near the end of the assessment, and you must have at least 6 weeks of opportunity to observe and interact with the students before you can conduct an assessment on them. The students in grades 3 through 5 were also given the opportunity. The students in grades 3 through 5 were also given the opportunity to do a self-assessment. And so, correction here, this is the place where the parents are given the opportunity to opt the students out. For the assessment that the teachers give is not an opt-out option. Okay, and as you can see, based on the results, out of the 239 students, 221 actually did the self-assessment, 18 did not, and that represents the number of students who either parents opted them out or we had students who came in late and were not able to get officially put in the system. This slide represents the results. This slide represents the results and is based on the teacher's assessment or screening of the students. 3%, which equals to 13% of the students, were screened as being extremely elevated risk. 7%, or 34 students, were in the elevated risk category, and 90%, which is 431 students, were screened in the normal risk category.
And this is from the teacher's point of view?
This is from the teacher's point of view, yes, ma'am. And then you have a slide that represents the risk distribution by grade level.
And this is also from the teacher's point of view?
This is also from the teacher's point of view, yes, ma'am.
It's interesting that kindergarten and 5th grade point of view is like more concerns in the kindergarten and then more concerns in the 5th grade. Which I guess makes sense because when you're coming in, the babies haven't adjusted, and then when you're going out,
Right.
the babies have met some real life opportunities by then.
Okay. This slide represents the student self-assessment, and as you can see, 6% or 14 students results show extremely elevated risk. 15% or 33 students were in the elevated risk category, and 79% or 174 students were in the normal risk category. And once again, this represents students in grades 3 through 5. Grades K through 2 were not given the self-assessment.
Okay, so when we look at this slide here, this is K5.
Yes, ma'am.
Based on the teacher's point of view.
Yes,
And
from
then
the
when we
teacher's point of
get to this slide, this
3 through
is
5.
okay,
And
because
the
there's a
student's point of
stark
view.
difference
Yes. In the
between
student's point
normal,
of view.
okay, and
And,
also less students.
Yes, also less students, and also I didn't put this in there, but also the questionnaire asks questions from a different point of view, if that makes sense. The questions are not exact. The questions are
Exact
not
match.
exactly the same in both in the assessments.
That's good to know. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And this is a risk distribution by grade, representing 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And
Is this the student's
the
point of
student
view?
self-assessment. I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, is this the student's point of view?
Yes, ma'am. This is the student's point of view.
Interesting. So knowing that, I guess 3rd grade is a concern, huh?
It possibly could be, Ms. Mincy. The thing that we find is also what's in there that we don't get to see is some of this is also how the students might interpret what the question is asking or the statement is making, based on their own level, comprehension level.
Yeah.
Right. In some cases, and the students were given the option for our native Spanish speakers. They were given the option to take the assessment in Spanish.
Okay.
But and I facilitated these particular assessments, so I would go in, and the students who needed help as far as reading the statements, I would do that also. But once again, how they interpret it could affect the results.
Okay. Is there a way to see the questions and the percentage for how they, like a rating for each question? Kind of like if one of the questions is, I have a best friend at school versus another question that says, I feel safe talking to my teacher. Is there a view that shows you this breakdown of how they rated each question? So we'll
There is
know
a
it's
there
a
is a
certain, go ahead.
there's a breakdown. There's a breakdown. I think I'm messing. I think I understand what you're asking. When we get the results, there's a printout that shows how the students responded to the question. So
Yes,
the categories were so the options were never, sometimes, often,
yes.
almost always,
Mhm.
right? And based on how the students and the teachers responded, then it would also determine maybe where they were where they were labeled. I'm going to use the word label, where they were placed in the categories of extreme risk, extremely elevated, or normal.
Yeah, so if it's
Is that what
like,
you're asking?
I have someone that listens to me, like if one of the questions, number 6, says I have someone who listens to me, we're able to see that 12% of our kids felt like never versus
Right. Well, I don't
80%
know what
felt strongly agreed. Does it break it
I
down like that?
no, it does not break it down like that. I'm sorry. I'm not able to see that. Like what percentage says never, no. It's
Yes.
based, it would be individually. We would go through and see, okay, this is what this student said. And usually
Okay.
the elevated, the extremely elevated is based on usually if the student says never for what is considered a positive statement, or almost always for what is considered a negative statement.
Oh, okay. I would like to see that view, just so we'll
Okay,
know what to be looking out for,
right.
because there are some assessments, and I'm getting my schools mixed up, where you can see that breakdown, and then you'll
Right.
know, what can we do to improve the experience of children, or how can we clarify this question so they understand what this
Mm.
question is asking, just to be sure. But okay.
Yeah. And and
Um,
and this probably gonna come in near the, I'm not sure if it's on the next screen. Oh yes, students who received an elevated or extremely elevated risk score were interviewed by the counselor, that's myself, or our school social worker, Ms. Miles, to assess the accuracy of their assessment and also to identify any interventional needs, which included parents being notified, providing small groups, which also required parents' permission to do small groups,
mhm.
and individual therapy was offered. That also required the parents' permission.
Okay. All right. And then, okay, but overall, what were your, I guess, overall, is this better than last year, or do you know?
I didn't compare. I haven't compared to years. But what we are seeing is that many of the students are students that we had already kind of identified who
Okay.
might be facing different challenges. The thing that I observed that the assessment does do is that it definitely helps us to identify students who might be dealing with anxiety that is not so obvious, and so we were
Okay.
able to. That was the place that I would say it was probably most
Okay.
beneficial. Once again, in many cases, it caught many of the students that we were already had identified and were working with and giving support to. But there
Okay.
were a few in that anxiety area around testing and things like that, or just feeling confident in their work that we were able to catch through the assessment.
Okay. Thank you. And based on this, it looks like our data is, we have less students who are extremely elevated, and more students at normal risk than the district average.
Right.
And then one last question, um, are the teachers notified? As I say, parents were notified, small groups.
Yes,
And
the teachers were notified, and we also had. I'm sorry. Go ahead. The teachers
no,
were. We
okay,
did. The teachers were made aware of these students.
great,
Uh, yes, ma'am. And
great.
also with the assessment that was true also is that sometimes uh, based on the scoring, sometimes it would show that you might have to question the response. So that was an indicator in there too that I didn't put in here.
The question and
That
response.
yeah, like in the case of like in the case with teachers, in case with a few teachers and even with the students, like their answers kind of conflicted with each other, where they might
Okay.
say, and so it showed that's one that we want to look at, because maybe there was a misunderstanding, or they were heavy on one way versus the other that was
Okay.
abnormal.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Stewart? Okay. All right. So that concludes the BAS. Thank you for sharing that. Final announcements is, if you haven't taken your satisfaction survey, your principal feedback survey, go ahead and take that. The Go team did just send out an email about attending the math textbook training. So if you want to know more about math, the standards, and the textbooks, they are offering that for Go team members. I strongly encourage parents to attend that. Our new members will join us in the fall. So we do have 2 new members rolling on, and that's Miss Knox and also Miss Foster. And then I think that means Mr. Stewart is rolling off. So Mr. Stewart, thank you very much for your participation and your faithfulness to come into our meetings and participating. And look at you, closing out with an actual presentation. So thank you very much for that. And then there are some folks that have to complete the required training. If that is you, just make sure that you do that. And that is it for me. Just thank you guys again for a great year on our Go team. And I look forward to next year.
Hey, thank you both. Does anyone, okay, so you have the announcements. We do have time for public comment. I don't think there's anyone here for public comment, but if there is anyone in the public that would like to make a comment, now is the time. Okay. And if we do not have any public comments, we have reached the end of our agenda. And so I would like to thank you all as well and ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, do I have a
I
second?
second that motion.
Thank you. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you all so much. This meeting is adjourned at 5:37 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.